is INA, Issues and Answers, addressing the issues important to you and our community. And now, INA, Issues and Answers.
Good morning and welcome to Issues and Answers. Issues and Answers is our weekly public affairs radio program on the radio stations of NRG Media in Omaha. My name is Neil Nelkin. I am the host and producer of the radio program. Today we're going to be talking about an institution in the city of Omaha, been here a long time. Most people are familiar with the name, but probably not familiar with all that has evolved in this institution over the years and what they are doing for the city of Omaha today. We're talking about the Child Saving Institute, and most people are familiar with CSI because of the building on Dodge Street, but they really don't know all the time about what goes on inside the building and what the CSI tentacles reach into the community and do so much good. Today, we want to welcome James Syme, who is president and CEO of CSI, Laura Sladovnik, the director of mental health services, a very important area nowadays, and Lori Bechtold, the chief development officer, which I'm assuming has to do with fundraising more than anything else. Good morning. Nice to have you three with us today. Appreciate you being here. Now, let's. Who's going to tackle a little bit about the background, the history, and how CSI came to be and where it is today? James?
Yeah, I'll take that. Like you said, been in the community a long time. So actually, it's a birthday year. Well, every year is a birthday year, but 130 years this year. So 2022 is a big year for the mission. So it's evolved over time, like you had mentioned. So back from Reverend Clark starting us, seeing the need, taking in some orphan children, to now doing 15 different programs and services in 5 key areas, focusing on kids from birth all the way to youth that are 24, 25 years old. So the mission does a lot. I like the word tentacles, and it's not just what you see when you drive by Dodge either, and the work that's happening in there. We have folks going into community homes and working with parents and teaching parenting skills and going into local schools. And so there's employees from CSI that you probably see about, and you don't even know they're representing CSI or doing the mission because it is so involved and wrapped up in the community.
What was the original reason Child Saving Institute tends to be all-encompassing with regard to the community looking out for children who are otherwise not taken care of? The mission hasn't changed, but it has changed over the years.
Yeah. So, the mission statement is still the same, responding to the cry of a child, and that was a very literal interpretation back when Reverend and Sarah Clark started the mission. Is they had orphan children that they wanted to take in, and there was nobody else in the community or no place for these children to go, so they started there. So the essence remains. Child is loosely defined now as we serve youth, families, and have kind of expanded in that way. And then the types and nature of our work. Since we're 130 years old, we've learned a little bit along the way. We've learned about the trauma that our folks have experienced, and I know Laura's going to expand on our mental health and behavioral health services, and so kind of responding to those needs as well. So the mission's evolved, as we all have, over 130 years, and we're just happy to be doing the work and happy to be embraced by the community of Omaha.
James Syme is president and CEO of Child Saving Institute here in Omaha. The need continues to grow. We haven't seen the need lessen for organizations like CSI and CSI in particular.
Correct. Yeah, I think everybody says the pandemic has shined a light on the need, but really I think if you talk with people who've been doing the work, the need's always been there. It's just been maybe less visible, or maybe folks who maybe been highlighted by behavioral health needs, maybe that's a new experience for them or people close to them. But I would say if you've been doing behavioral health or human services work for a long time, the need has existed in our community. We're just happy that people are talking about it, especially around mental health services, having the conversation, building that sense of awareness, makes it more likely that somebody's going to pick up the phone and get the help they need from Laura and the team at CSI.
Now, as president CEO, how many people are actually operating under you at CSI? What's your staff look like?
Yeah, we have 175 employees doing the work, again, amongst 15 different programs and services. So from early childhood education to mental health to our prevention services program, child welfare, juvenile justice, we have folks doing a variety of different services every single day, which is pretty amazing. And it's those folks that make the mission tick. I'm just a talking head in a lot of ways, and here talking to you, they're the folks that make the mission go.
With regard to the people that you have at CSI, are you having the same issues that everybody else seems to be having? Finding, training, soliciting new employees to fill out any vacancies you may have?
Wow, that's a thing. No, yeah, of course, yes. It's a challenging time getting talented folks in the door, especially with our highly specialized positions that we're looking to fill. Mental health therapists, that's a very unique skill set. Our folks that do child welfare work, our folks that work in early childhood education. So it's not only a tough hiring environment generally, but when you start to look for very specific skill sets. And then I think CSI does a good job filtering because we want the top talent. It's incredibly challenging work. The needs are complex. So we're not just going to let anybody come in the doors and do the work. We are looking for the right people because the folks that we're serving depend on that.
With regard to Child Saving Institute, who wants to tackle maybe a listing or an evaluation of the various services that you provide at CSI?
Yeah, I can tackle
you,
that.
James.
Yeah. And again, I think it's easily explained in 5 core buckets. We have child welfare, early education, juvenile justice, mental health, and prevention services. And so I know those are kind of jargony in a lot of ways. Prevention services is just that. We're trying to prevent as many ills, child abuse, neglect from occurring. So we're working with young parents. We're teaching parenting skills. We're investing in early intervention. We're going into early childhood classrooms when a child is first displaying a social emotional issue, trying to wrap our arms around and support them. Our mental health therapists, it's outpatient mental health services for folks in the community who have a variety of needs, primarily serving children and youth in that program. Our early education program, we have 2 pretty big centers. One at Dodge, 46th and Dodge, and one over at the College of St. Mary's campus that we operate. And then child welfare kind of work, like we explained, foster care, kind of the essence of the mission going back 130 years is kind of in that child welfare arena. So we have in-home program that's going in to support families as well.
What about the demographics? What ages do you generally provide service to?
We have a program called our Teen and Young Parent Program. So those would be young mothers that we're serving up to giving birth. So children as young as, a day old and youth up to 24, 25. But we have started to fold the family into the programming as well, kind of a 2-generational approach. So although our services may not be directed at that individual, we understand that if we're trying to heal an individual, some of that healing happens within a family unit.
CSI also deals directly with other entities around the community, such as schools, law enforcement, social services. You're not alone in what you do.
Correct. Yeah, we count on our community partners. We count on our community supporters. So whether that's making a referral or working hand in hand to address the work, that happens in a lot of different ways, kind of like cookie dough, right? I think each situation's different and unique, and the mixture of people we have to pull in to support a child or a family looks a little bit different. But we have many amazing community partners, one of which, for example, we do a triage service out at Project Harmony, and Project Harmony has been a longstanding partner of CSI. We're proud of that. We're proud of the work that Project Harmony does. We're very thrilled to be one of their partners. It's it's heartbreaking, but absolutely critical work, and it's some of the best work that's happening across the country dealing with that very difficult situation.
Your agency here in Omaha is rather unique in terms of what other things are available in other communities of similar size and need. Child Saving Institute is a one-of-a-kind agency, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we've maintained our core responsibility is children and youth, and not that adults, individuals don't have needs. I think we just wanted to remain true to that mission. And I believe when we step into a program or service, we want to do that with a high degree of integrity, and quality matters, because the people that we're serving, they should expect that, and they definitely need that. So not to say that there aren't other organizations in this community. I think Omaha is very fortunate in that regard to have many high-quality service providers, but CSI has been really guarded on the who we serve and the how we serve.
James Syme is president and CEO of Child Saving Institute. James, how long have you been in this job?
Oh, my gosh. Well, not quite 200 days. So I joined early October of 2021. So I'm learning a lot, coming in at a challenging time with the hiring and the multitude of programs and services. But it's an absolute thrill to get to work with such a passionate team of people doing very important work every single day. And
you're no stranger to the community. You've been around a while.
Yeah, although the community might not want to acknowledge that fact. I've been in and around nonprofits, previously spending time at Micah House in Boys Town before coming to CSI.
One of the challenging areas we're seeing a lot in society today, and maybe recent years, is mental health services in general, and particularly for young people and young families having young children. Mental health is a challenge. Laura Sladovnik is the Director of Mental Health Services at CSI. And Laura, what about the need? Is it increasing? Is it getting better? Are you in danger of putting yourself out of a job?
I am not in danger of putting myself out of a job by any means. Unfortunately, we are seeing an increase in mental health needs, especially with the isolation that the pandemic has provided to a lot of teens and children, and just parenting challenges with trying to juggle so many things that have to do pandemic related as well. And as James mentioned, the underlying needs that were already there. So those together have been compounded, and we are seeing an increase in mental health care needs.
How do people take advantage of the services that you in particular offer in mental health arenas? Do people come to you? Are people referred to you? Do you go out and solicit people to take care of?
CSI currently serves the needs in our community. We have about 60% Medicaid, and then we do 40% private pay insurance. We get recommendations or referrals from clinicians, other clinicians, from Boys Town, UNMC, other providers in the community. They would just call our number, the 553-6000, and ask for mental health services. We currently have 7 therapists on staff, and we just added in January a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and she provides medication management services. We also have recently had an additional 2 therapists that are bilingual, and our office manager is bilingual as well.
Which is a necessity in this day and age for sure.
It is. We're very happy to find them.
We find that in the Omaha Public Schools, more than 100 different languages are spoken. How do you deal with people that have languages that you don't have interpreters for?
Well, we have been lucky enough at CSI to recently, we had a grant and we obtained something called a MARTI interpreter system, and it allows us to speak to a live person with over, I think it's 225 languages.
Wow. What type of needs are being presented to you? I'm mostly concerned with children as opposed to teens or some of the older folks you take care of. But the young ones, what are the needs that they have depending upon where they're coming to you from?
We have a trauma-focused approach at CSI, and we're seeing a lot of kids that have trauma. We see a lot of foster kids. There's anxiety, depression. It's all over the board, some school-related issues, things like that.
What's your plan of attack for those children who have that need?
For attachment-related issues and trauma-focused,
Sure.
is all of our therapists are trained in that. Sometimes they might do a parent-child interaction therapy to work on that attachment. We have therapists that are trained in that as well. And then if it's just anxiety or depression, they would start with seeing a therapist. We do an intake evaluation to decide what the best treatment plan is. We develop a treatment plan, and that is shared with the client in the first 3 weeks, and it's agreed upon with the caregiver, and then treatment ensues down the road.
What about outcomes? Do you have any stories about children who have come to you presenting particularly difficult situations that through your work and the work of your people at CSI have turned that child around to the point where they are no longer subject to the mental health problems that they came with?
Oh, absolutely. I can think of a lot, but one that stands out to me is our staff has a staff meeting every week, and where we talk about difficult cases and we try to work through them. And one of the things that we just talked about this morning is we had a client that came in and was having a lot of difficulties at school. His parents had just gone through a divorce, the pandemic challenges of being at home by himself. He had a dog that passed away, and he was really acting out. And so through mental health therapy, and then we actually referred him for medication management to help decreasing some anxieties that he had. Just got a report from his dad today that that his father got a report from school that he's doing well, and he was crying because it was the first time he had heard that in over a year. That
And how old was this child?
He was 11.
11 years old, boy.
Yes.
What about the children that present problems that you just can't seem to reach? You just can't generate the results that you and your team are expecting to see?
In that case, if we've tried everything that we can possible, then we do try to make other community referrals and just work as a treatment team to figure out what we can do best for a client and to get them where they need to be. I always say you can call our program, and even if we're not the ones to help you, we'll find out where you should be.
And since we're dealing primarily with foster kids in foster homes, do you also have some sort of a relationship with parents involved as well?
Oh, absolutely. Parents, we do treatment team meetings with parents, caregivers, and like a case manager is typically involved, things like that. So we work hard to really have a good team and support it and not just work alone.
At CSI, it's no different than every place else dealing with this pandemic. Based on what you saw prior to the pandemic, is it an increase in mental health needs among your clients that you can attribute to the isolation, the concerns, even the fear of COVID-19? Is that directly attributable to what's going on with some of these children?
I think with some of the children. I mean, as I said, I think that some of these issues have been underlying and always there, but I think the pandemic has exacerbated a number of these things. Being alone, being taught by an iPad, a lot of times they don't have a caregiver at home because they've had to work, and so all of those issues are, I think, compounding.
Is there a difference between younger children and some of the children who are in their teenage years, maybe a little more socially awkward, and also coming up on maybe aging out of the system?
Definitely. I mean, I think it all depends on where you've been, where you've learned. I mean, we're looking at little children in some of our other programs that all they've known is COVID. All they've known is a masked caregiver if they're going to daycare, and that's definitely very different for somebody that's going to age out of the system because they haven't had the communication. And we've had more school refusal than I've ever seen before, ever. And I think that's from being home for a year. So now we're seeing an increase in school refusal. Kids have a really hard time going back to the classroom.
When you say school refusal, can you define that?
Just not going to school, refusing to go to school.
Refusing to go to school.
Yes.
And what are the reasons?
Anxiety, scared. A lot of times people just don't want to go. They don't want to be they may be scared of COVID. They may not feel like they can learn. Learning on an iPad for a year and then going back to a classroom has been an adjustment for a lot of people, a lot of kids in our community.
Socialization is a challenge?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Laura Sladovnik is the Director of Mental Health Services at Child Saving Institute. None of the things we talk about would be possible without the fundraising efforts of the Chief Development Officer. And we turn now to Lori Bechtold, who is the CDO, Chief Development Officer at Child Saving Institute. And, Lori, you've got some challenges that you have to deal with regard to the pandemic, with regard to increased needs, and with regard to maybe a little decrease in resources that people are available to help with. How does your job relate to what's going on in the community?
Well, as James mentioned, CSI has 15 different programs, and each of those programs, there's a multitude of need in each of those. So there's a multitude of ways that people can help. You can donate or attend one of our upcoming events. People can consider leaving Child Saving Institute in their lifelong giving plans. Become a board member, a guild member, join our aunties group, which is a women's giving circle. You can also drop off in-kind donations. We have a large baby boutique where we take diapers, pack and plays, anything that young parents need to provide support to their child. We also take donations of hygiene items and hygiene kits for the young men and women in our independent living services program and the young men in our emergency shelter.
What have you seen pre-pandemic versus today? Have the donations increased, decreased? Does it become more of a challenge?
Funding there has remained pretty steady, which as a nonprofit, we were very fortunate, just kind of weather the pandemic storm.
And what about goals? What are you looking for in terms of, say, annual goals for gift-giving, fundraising, donations, things like that?
Our annual operating budget's about $11.5 million, and we raise approximately half of that through our different fundraising mechanisms. One way we do that is through our events, and our largest fundraiser will be held on May 7th. It's called Cabaret, and it's an evening of drinks, dinner, and a comedian. And we're honored to have Steve Trevino come in this year as our comedian. He's known as America's favorite husband. And he's headlined on Amazon, Netflix, and Prime. So that event will be at the Embassy Suites in La Vista.
And it's not too early to start buying tickets, is it?
It is not too early to start thinking about that. May will be here before we know it.
How do we get tickets, and how do we make those arrangements and reservations?
You can buy tickets online at childsaving.org.
And it's very easy to do that. You can get as many as 100 tickets if you want.
Yes, you can. And we also have multiple sponsorship of opportunities left.
Oh, you do? Okay. So you're looking for sponsors and attendees to be buying tickets as well. Maybe a table of 10 or 12 would be very helpful as well. Outside of your specific fundraising events such as this, how can people help? Do you take donations through the door? Is the website the best way to go? Telephone?
There's, like I mentioned, a website, childsaving.org is a great way. You can call us at 402-553-6000. An easy way to give to is download an app called Together a Greater Good. And when you visit participating restaurants, dry cleaners, gyms, you basically take a screenshot of the receipt, and proceeds do come back to CSI from that. You can use Smile Amazon and choose Child Saving Institute as the agency, and we'll receive a portion of those sales back. And then you can also shop the wish list on our website.
So you make it pretty easy for people to help out. 501c3, I'm assuming?
Yes.
So donations are tax deductible. And the small donations matter just as much as the big ones. It's nice to get those 5-figure checks, but they don't come that often.
That is correct. Every dollar matters, especially when you're dealing, the impact that a dollar can make on the life of a child.
What about other organizations like the United Way, things like that? Are you participants in those campaigns as well?
Yes, we are a recipient of United Way funding, and we are so grateful for that.
And as well as being able to work within the community and to meet the people in the community. And when you're doing events like Cabaret, you get to meet people who are supporting you in the community, and Omaha's a particularly generous community with regard to nonprofits.
Omaha's a very philanthropic community, and we're blessed to be, part of people's giving plans, and we also receive very generous support from private foundations, businesses, individuals, and we couldn't do the great work that we do every day without their support.
And once again, the website and phone number for people who may want to participate?
Childsaving.org, and the phone number is 402 553-6000.
Lori Bechtold, Chief Development Officer at Child Saving Institute. Let's come back to the President, Mr. President. James Syme, that may be an office you may want to consider as CEO. You want to be called Mr. President. But it's been a rewarding 200 some odd days since you've been at CSI. Give me a little reflection on your experience so far.
Yeah, it's funny that you say president. Actually, the kids down in our early childhood center call me Mr. James. And I think that's a fond reflection and many fond memories from those kids. And I think you look at how CSI is able to influence a trajectory of a child's life, and really it's just reaching in and showing a child, teen, or a youth that you care, you see them, and trying to respond to that. And as the CEO, I occasionally get to drop down into our childhood center, and these kids are just so full of wonder and amazement that I stopped by for 15 minutes one time, and 3 weeks later, the kids were confusing me with St. Nicholas and dropping treats in their boots. And it's just an example that, those kids or kids who have experienced trauma, right, we want them to have that normal childhood. We want them to confuse Mr. James with Santa Claus, and we want them to explore. Unfortunately, we know through our work that for a lot of kids in our community, that isn't what home is like. That isn't what they haven't felt, that level of safety, and therefore they can't experience that wonderment. So through our healing services, through our programs, we hope that we can get that child and those families to a place where whatever normal's like for that family, they can get there. We definitely want to get them to a place of safety. And, in that short period of time, I've got to experience those opportunities where children are really happy. Unfortunately, a lot of our programs and services that are reaching out into the community, it's not as fun-loving up front, but we hope the end result after months of work that we can get kids there, we can get families there, and we can meet them where they are, and we can connect them to community partners. We can bring them in our doors if services are needed, and if a child has a behavioral or mental health need, we hope somebody, one of our amazing therapists, can address that need as well.
Looking at what you folks do on a day-to-day basis, what actually would happen if CSI wasn't here and available in the Omaha community? What do you think the outcome could be?
Yeah, I think it would be tragic in a lot of ways. One, you'd lose a very staunch advocate for those needs of those children, and I think we've held firm to that. We want to be a pillar, a place where people can call if they have questions about those specific needs. Obviously, there would be an immediate vacuum to almost 200 kids that are in early childhood education, all the children that are receiving care through our mental health services, all the young mothers that we're providing services to, diapers, parenting education. So it would have a tremendous ripple effect, and you'd just lose an amazing community advocate that's been doing it 130 years. We haven't been perfect along the way, right? I think sometimes we deal with the knowledge and awareness in front of us, and we're all, like any organization, we only have the resources we have to address the problems that we can with those resources. That's why we love opportunities like this to come talk about our mission, to expand the number of people that know about us, come in our doors, volunteer, make a donation, get involved with the mission. That allows us to do more, think about our programs critically, and hopefully get better for the next 130 years.
When you talk about volunteers, do you get former clients coming back into the fold to kind of help CSI in the work you do?
I can't say that for certain, but I would say yes. I can't personally say that for certain.
You haven't been there long enough.
Haven't been there long enough, but I do know from my experience with some of the youth in our shelter, which is a program that I haven't talked much about. These are kids coming either from the child welfare or juvenile justice system, but I think even in a limited 30 to 40 days at our shelter program, they can feel the love and warmth. And I know in my interactions with those youth, they've stated the intent to want to come back and serve youth who were like them. And so That's kind of the amazing thing. Even when you're dealing with a child who's experienced such trauma, or a youth whose life has been nothing but, you sit down and talk to them. We're all humans. We all desire connection, and we all want to do good. And so I think sometimes that opportunity hasn't been granted. And so when you get those moments where you can connect with them, and those youth give us challenges too, right? So I'm talking about the easy moments where Mr. James can pop in the shelter and get the kids on their best behavior. So the desire is definitely there. We probably can do a better job creating that linkage. COVID has drastically impacted the volunteer opportunities, us trying to keep our staff and the people we serve safe, and trying to keep our community volunteers and reduce that exposure. So I know it's something we're wanting to do in a more robust way, because that has been one of the unfortunate tragedies to COVID as us trying to be safe as an organization. We've had to limit those number of outside people.
One more time, contact information, website, phone number.
Lori?
Oh, I can do this. Childsaving.org, and phone number is 402-553-6000.
James Syme is the president and CEO of Child Saving Institute. Laura Sladovnik is the director of mental health services. Lori Bechtold, the chief development officer. Wish you the very best. Good luck with Cabaret, and thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having us.
Appreciate it.
This has been INA. Tune in next time to INA, Issues and Answers, an NRG Media production.